In a landmark decision that will have far-reaching consequences for the balance of power in Washington, the Supreme Court has blocked President Trump's attempt to use emergency powers in a way never before seen in American history. The administration had sought to impose sweeping tariffs on imports from Brazil and India, citing national economic security as justification. These tariffs, if enacted, would have affected billions of dollars in goods, disrupting established trade relationships and raising concerns among global partners. In their majority opinion, the justices ruled that the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEPA, was never intended to be used for such broad economic actions. Instead, the court reaffirmed that Congress, not the president, holds the constitutional authority to set and regulate trade policy. Legal experts say this decision draws a clear line, preventing future presidents from unilaterally reshaping the nation's economic landscape under the guise of emergency powers. For American industries that had been burdened by the threat and reality of these tariffs, the decision brings immediate relief. Manufacturers and business owners, many of whom had faced rising costs and uncertainty, can now breathe easier knowing that the tariffs will be lifted. Consumers, too, are expected to benefit as prices on everyday goods stabilize or even drop. The removal of tariffs means lower costs for imported products, which could help ease inflation and make household budgets stretch further. The Supreme Court's ruling sends a strong message. Future presidents cannot bypass Congress to impose wide-ranging tariffs simply by declaring an economic emergency. This decision reasserts the checks and balances that are fundamental to the American system of government. With this ruling, the responsibility for crafting and overseeing trade strategy now returns squarely to Congress, as the framers of the Constitution intended. Lawmakers will once again play the central role in shaping America's economic relationships with the world. The removal of the tariffs is also expected to stabilize supply chains that had been thrown into disarray. Businesses that rely on imported materials and components can now plan for the future with greater confidence, helping to ensure steady production and delivery of goods. Economists predict that this move will restore predictability to the market, encouraging investment and growth. With fewer trade barriers, American companies can compete more effectively on the global stage. Ultimately, this case sets a powerful precedent, reinforcing the separation of powers at the heart of American government and ensuring that no single branch can unilaterally alter the nation's economic destiny. Tariffs are taxes placed on goods that are brought into a country from abroad. When a product crosses a border, the government can charge a fee, called a tariff, on that item. These taxes are collected at ports of entry and can apply to anything from electronics and cars to clothing and food. The main purpose of tariffs is to protect domestic industries by making foreign products more expensive, which encourages consumers to buy goods made at home. This can help local businesses grow and preserve jobs, but it can also lead to higher prices for shoppers and sometimes spark trade disputes with other countries. According to the U.S. Constitution, the authority to set tariffs and regulate trade with other nations belongs to Congress, not the President. This power is part of Congress's broader responsibility to manage the nation's economic policy and ensure fair trade practices. Over the years, Congress has chosen to delegate some of its trade authority to the executive branch, allowing the President to act quickly in certain situations. However, these powers come with strict legal limits and oversight to prevent abuse and maintain balance between the branches of government. Before the president can take action on trade issues, laws require thorough investigations, public input, and clear justifications. This process is designed to ensure that any changes to tariffs are based on evidence and national interest, not just political motives. When President Trump used emergency powers to impose new tariffs, he bypassed much of this established process. His administration argued that national security concerns justified immediate action, but this move raised questions about the limits of presidential authority. Critics argued that this wasn't just an economic issue, it was a fundamental challenge to the constitutional order. They warned that allowing the president to act unilaterally on tariffs could upset the careful balance of power between Congress and the executive branch. The Supreme Court's recent ruling has now reaffirmed that only Congress has the authority to impose broad taxes on imports, restoring the original intent of the Constitution and clarifying the limits of executive power. This important precedent strengthens the checks and balances designed by the nation's founders, ensuring that no single branch of government can act alone when it comes to shaping the country's trade policy. President Trump's use of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act to impose tariffs was unprecedented. IEPA was intended for targeted actions against threats like terrorism, not for rewriting trade policy. The administration claimed trade deficits were a national emergency, but critics argued this stretched the law's intent. Legal experts warned that allowing such use of emergency powers would set a dangerous precedent. The core issue, whether the president could use IEPA as a loophole to exercise Congress's exclusive power to tax. In court, the Trump administration argued IEPA gave the president broad authority to address threats, including trade deficits. They claimed the law's language was intentionally flexible, allowing tariffs as a response to economic threats. Opponents countered that IEPA was never meant for general trade policy and that Congress alone should set tariffs. They warned that the administration's interpretation would give the president unchecked power to tax imports at will. The challengers pointed to decades of IEPA use for targeted sanctions, not sweeping tariffs. Judges questioned whether Congress ever intended to hand over such vast economic power to the executive branch. The debate centered on preserving the constitutional balance between the branches of government. The Supreme Court ruled that President Trump's use of IEPA to impose broad tariffs was unlawful. The majority opinion emphasized that IEPA was never intended to replace the normal legislative process for trade policy. The justices reaffirmed that only Congress can impose taxes on imports, closing a potential loophole for future presidents. This decision restores vital checks and balances, ensuring that major trade decisions require congressional approval. The ruling may also require the government to refund billions collected in tariffs, directly benefiting affected businesses. The verdict not only shapes future policy, but addresses the financial harm caused by the tariffs. The case stands as a clear statement on the limits of executive power in economic matters. The 50% tariffs on Brazilian and Indian goods sent shockwaves through the U.S. economy almost overnight. These tariffs, which were among the highest in recent history, affected a wide range of imported products, from everyday consumer goods to essential industrial materials. As a result, the cost of doing business in America rose sharply, and the effects rippled through every sector. American businesses found themselves paying billions in new taxes, which they quickly passed on to consumers. Shoppers noticed higher prices at the checkout, not just for luxury items, but for basic necessities like food, clothing, and household goods. This sudden spike in costs fueled a new wave of inflation, making it harder for families to stretch their budgets. Key inflation measures, such as the Consumer Price Index, climbed steadily during the tariff period. Economists and analysts sounded alarms as the data showed a clear upward trend with inflation reaching levels not seen in years. The job market also took a hit. Many businesses facing higher costs and uncertain futures paused hiring and scaled back investments. Job seekers found fewer opportunities and existing employees worried about layoffs. Sectors from manufacturing to retail felt the strain. Factories slowed production, retail stores saw fewer customers, and small businesses struggled to keep their doors open. Job creation lagged far behind previous years, and the sense of economic momentum faded. For companies that relied on imports, the unpredictability of the tariffs made long-term planning nearly impossible. Managers faced delays, rising expenses, and uncertainty about future supply and demand. Shipping rates fluctuated wildly and supply chains were disrupted nationwide. Delays at ports and shortages on store shelves became common, frustrating both businesses and consumers. The constant shifts in policy stifled economic growth and created widespread anxiety in the business community. Many entrepreneurs hesitated to expand or invest, fearing further changes. When the Supreme Court finally intervened, it brought much-needed stability and relief. Businesses could once again plan for the future, and a sense of optimism slowly returned to the economy. The Supreme Court's decision sparked strong reactions across the country. Business leaders welcomed the ruling, saying it restored certainty and allowed for better planning. Many politicians praised the decision for upholding the Constitution and reasserting Congress's role in trade. Supporters of the tariffs criticized the court for limiting the president's ability to protect American jobs. Legal experts hailed the ruling as a landmark for constitutional law and checks and balances. Everyday Americans had mixed feelings, some relieved by lower prices, others worried about job security. The case is expected to become a key example in law schools and public debates for years to come. The decision's impact was felt in households, factories, and boardrooms nationwide. The Supreme Court's decision is more than a policy reversal. It's a reaffirmation of America's constitutional structure. By blocking the use of emergency powers for broad tariffs, the court protected Congress's authority over taxation and trade. The ruling brings stability for businesses and consumers, likely easing inflation and restoring confidence in the market. America's global partners see this as a commitment to a rules-based trading system. The focus now shifts to Congress to develop a long-term bipartisan trade strategy. This case reminds us that government decisions directly affect our daily lives, from prices to job security. Understanding these checks and balances is essential for an engaged and informed democracy.